So hi everyone. Uh, Thank you for coming today. Hi Tyson. Thank you for coming today, and welcome to American TESOL presents free Friday webinars. Um, for those of you who are used to coming to the free Friday webinars, this is something done usually by Shelley Taro, but Shelley's traveling today. She's on an airplane all day, so I was kindly invited to fill in for her. Okay, thank you, Graham. Yeah, people tell me that it sounds like Darth Vader. Is it better this way? Okay, so is no more Darth Vader? Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay then? Hi, Ian. All right, so let's get this started. Um, okay, so today we're going to be talking about we're going to be talking a little bit about um, problems with writing, why some students are so resistant to writing assignments, and why is it so hard for them to improve their writing, which is something that I feel my students struggle a lot with here in Brazil. My name is Cecilia. You can call me Ceci, and I've been an EFL teacher here in Brazil in Recife for the past 17 years. I teach mostly more fluent speakers, more advanced speakers, starting on B2 and on, according to the Common European Framework. Um, and I mean, they're quite fluent orally, but when it comes to writing, they struggle a lot with the language, with the vocabulary, with the structure and size, with everything basically. So um, my idea here is to talk a little bit about that and to show you some ideas that I've been using in class. I mean, I've been using a lot of different ideas, but show you some ideas that I've used and have been successful with, that students have actually bought the ideas and I have seen improvement in their writing. So, okay, so what's the problem? Um, what did I see as a problem? Okay, my students' writings are too short, because at a B2 level you would expect them to be able to write an essay of at least a page, and they will give me half a page. They will not give me many paragraphs, not the proper structure. Students in more fluent levels, they don't write as well as expected. They use very basic structures. They don't vary verb tenses, or they don't use um, they don't use connectors. They don't use transitions properly. Um, they speak better. Hi, Anika. Thank you. Oh, I'm clicking in the wrong place. Okay. Structure and vocabulary use do not reflect the level they're in. And most of all, for me, this is my, yes, cohesion is a big problem, Tyson. Most of my biggest problem is actually that students are not motivated, engaged. Does that happen with you guys when you come to class and you have a writing assignment and you say, okay, and you do all the pre-writing, you talk about the topic, you um, you have discussions, maybe you have a reading to prepare them for the topic, and then once you pull out that writing assignment with with the ruled paper, they're like, oh no, teacher, not writing. Writing is boring. Yes, we hate writing. Oh, teacher, can we do this some other time? Well, who chooses the topic? That's a very good question, Graham. Sometimes I do let the students choose a topic, but most times the topic has something to do with the general theme we're discussing that unit. Um, Usually, for example, on my high intermediate courses, we talk about advertising in media and consumerism, and I also always try to approach each of those themes in the most appropriate way, in the most motivating way to each group that I teach those levels. Yes, writing is always a problem. I see. I have been noticing that it's not only in Brazil, not only with my students, but so yeah. So I see that it's it's generalized, right? That students everywhere, once you pull out that writing assignment, they express their dislike for writing assignments and say how much they hate that. Okay. Uh, yeah, I do have a better experience with collaborative writing tests. But Tyson, don't you think that when you do collaborative writing, there's always a stronger student who takes the lead, and the others kind of, kind of stay on the background a little bit, may help here and there, but don't really take an active part? Okay, in some cultures, in what cultures exactly is writing popular? I'd like to move there. Okay, so guys, so what could we do, right? I started thinking, what could I do to engage these students, to show them that writing is not that bad, to make them see that writing doesn't have to be painful. Okay, so my first idea was mini writings. Now, the thing that scared the students the most once you talked about writing was that, they think about a 4-paragraph essay. Teacher, it's going to take forever. It's too long. And so what did I do? I decided to deceive my students. I am a very deceitful teacher. And I decided to cheat on them. I decided to trick them, not cheat on them, I'm sorry. I decided to trick them. So what did I do? For example, we'd have a certain topic, and I would plan how an essay on that topic would probably be developed. What would be said? What would be a question to be answered on the introduction? What would be a question to be answered in the body? How could that be developed? And then how would the conclusion be? And so I broke the writing, the essay apart, and I gave the students each paragraph, let's say like this. I don't tell them that they're writing a whole essay. I tell them, okay, we're having a writing storm. Actually, it's not an original idea. The writing storm idea comes from a book from Penny if I'm not mistaken, it's a 5-minute activities. She uses writing storms. But this is the idea, right? So I create 4 or 5 writing prompts on the same topic, and I create them in such a way that the prompts can be put together afterwards and with very little change become a nice essay, a well-developed essay. So I have 10-minute writing storms in class, and I mean 10 minutes is not scary. 10 minutes is not threatening, They don't complain about writing for 10 minutes. Yes, I will give you some writing prompts. They don't complain once you say, okay, let's write for 10 minutes. They think, yeah, 10 minutes, it's not that bad. So you kind of break that barrier, that initial resistance that students show. And I never tell them that it's a sequence. Of course, that after I do them with them the first time, they know. But at the end of the unit, after I have given them the 4 or 5 prompts, what I do is in a class, after I have collected them all, I give them back all together in a class, and I say, okay, here you have an essay. And I gave them a paper, and I say, just copy it in an essay form because maybe you are going to need to do some adapting. Yes. Okay, so let me give you some examples of how I do the prompting. For example, the example I'm going to give you is from one of the high intermediate books we have, in the chapter. The theme of the chapter is media and advertising. So prompt 1, I asked them how powerful are advertising in media, because that's a very general question. Prompt 2, how much influence do media and advertising have over you? Prompt 3, what strategies do companies and advertising agencies use to influence people? And then prompt 4, what can be done to fight the strategies used by companies to influence us? Yes, Ola. Yeah, Graham, and you know what? It really helps because once you give them the 4 papers, they really don't have anything to say. They don't have any arguments against writing an essay because the essay is there. It's ready. They just have to put it down on paper. Yes, I can, sure. I can wait a little bit on the slides, of course. So, of course, that the very first time I did this with a very nice, very fluent, and very, uh, just a bunch of smart kids. And once I gave them all the papers together, and I said, okay, so you have an essay. One of the students just turned to me and said, teacher, you tricked us. You made us write a whole essay without telling us. And I said, yeah, but you guys did it, and it didn't hurt, and I'm showing you that it doesn't hurt to write. And he says, yes, I guess you're right. So after the first time I do, they know where I'm getting to, but they still don't complain as much because 10 minutes a class is not that much. They do get writing activities every class. I mean, they're in touch with writing. It makes sure that they have some writing every class. And in the end, they do have a whole essay, and I can work on the structure of an essay with them after that. Yes, Ola. Yes, I do use this, as I mentioned before. Most of my students are higher level, fluent students. They're usually 14, 15-year-olds, but they're quite fluent at about a B2 level in the Common European Framework. Or how could this be adapted to an A1 or A2 level? That's a good question. I think it can be adapted to any level, because it's up to the teacher to develop the prompt, to create the prompt as to better favor the language that the students have, and not to scare them. If you simpler topics, simpler questions, right? So if you have an A1 level and you're talking about hobbies, because that's something you can talk about with beginners, right? So, Panda, is that Brad? So if you're at a beginner level and you're talking about hobbies, the first question can be exactly, for example, uh, why is having a hobby a good thing? Or you can do a second topic would be, do you have any hobbies? Um, what do your hobbies do for you? What kind of benefit do your hobbies do for you? Um, in a conclusion, why would you suggest people to take up hobbies or something like that? Does it make any sense, Ola? Practicing sports, exactly. Why is it good to practice sports? What sports do you practice? Why would you suggest someone to practice sports? It's all about the kind of questions you ask. The prompts have to contain questions that the students are able to answer themselves. Okay? All right. Now, I think it really depends on the level you're talking about. I don't really put a limit on the number of sentences, Ola. For my students, since they're fluent and I want each prompt is actually supposed to be a paragraph, I suppose I expect them to write about at least 5 to 8 lines. About 5. Exactly, Anna. Hello, Anna. Okay, let's move on. Oh, we're not going to have time. Shelley said I over-prepare. I'm always like that. Okay, my second idea is one of my babies because this is actually an idea I had. It's a vocabulary bank. Now, some of you may have seen these on my blog, right? But this is how I do it. Now, one of the things I feel, as I mentioned in the beginning, one of the problems I feel my students have is their vocabulary is not equivalent, is not up to the level of their oral fluency. It's, it's not appropriate to the level of fluency they have. Okay, so the concept is every class you give the student a new word. Because as a language learner, when I was studying French or Spanish, when I ended the class and I had a list of 20, 30 new words on my notebook, I have to say that I hardly ever learned all those words. So it's not a matter, vocabulary learning is not a matter of just throwing a bunch of words onto the student, but rather than that, maybe bringing their attention to 1 or 2 words, and referring back to it and bringing it back and making them use it, right? Because that's the only way that we learn. Exactly, quality, not quantity. So the concept is every class I bring them a new word, and I have a vocabulary bank poster attached to my wall. I usually teach my students to have 36 classes in a semester with me. So I tell them that I'm going to give them 30 words throughout the semester, 1 in each class. Okay? And that's what my poster looks like. And that's where being a graphic designer helps a little bit. I made a little logo for my vocabulary bank. Oh, thank you, Graham. It was nice of you to stop by. Okay, so I give one question a class. You can't really see sorry, not one question, one new vocabulary a class, right? And you can't really see, but the words I have, this vocabulary bank is from this semester. Actually, right now we are on word 32, I think. But we have prevail, imply, peculiar, frantic, achievement, nuisance, faux pas, commitment, to address, outweigh. Where do I find these words? I have to admit that I write some of them down when I am reading a book and I see a word, oh, that's a nice word to use. And most of all, I use vocabulary lists for TOEFL, for IELTS, for Michigan, for Cambridge University tests. I use the vocabulary lists. Now, I do not tie them with any topic that I'm teaching, Ola. The vocabulary bank is a separate project. No, Sue, I do not keep them in a wiki or anything. I leave the poster in the class. Students are expected, they copy it down on their notebooks every class, the new word. So I bring the new word, I put the new word on the poster, and Tyson, I see how the word choice should transfer through topics, but at the same time, I also want them to, the idea of the vocabulary bank is that they have vocabulary to use in anything. I was afraid that tying it to the topics would make it too specific, because the specifics are the topics are very, very specific. Okay, so how do? I put the word there in the beginning of class. Actually, students are so used to it and they enjoy it so much that they actually ask for the word if I forget to put it in the poster. And I usually ask the students, has anyone ever heard that word? Does anyone know how this word is used? Sometimes one of them know. It's very common for one of them to know the word, and they explain it to the others what the word is. I ask them to give an example sentence and so, or I give an example sentence. I use it in a sentence and they tell me the definition, not a definition, but what is the word, what they understand the word is. Okay, I'll tell you in a second. So the idea is I present those words, and as I told you, I'm going to give them 30 words throughout the semester. Students have to use a number of words throughout the semester. So they have that poster, and I keep adding words to that poster. And for my students, since we have 36 classes and I give them 30 words, all I ask them is to use 10 different words throughout the entire semester. I have found that if you set very reasonable objectives to your students, they will do it. When I say I just need you to use 10 words throughout the whole semester, they say, yeah, that's not bad. It's not hard. So, no, I do not. They use it in their speaking, but I tell them that if they use it while speaking in class, it's only worth if they show me, teacher, hey, they have to point out that they're using the word. But I really I tell them that they can use in speaking, but they have to use the 10 times in writing. But they can use it in writing in any piece of writing they submit to me. It can be a writing assignment. It can be answers for a reading assignment. It can be an email they send me talking about a problem and that they won't be able to attend class. It can be in many, many ways. Yes, I do favor writing because that's my idea, my intention, my whole rationale for creating the vocabulary bank was to improve students' vocabulary while writing. I think their vocabulary when speaking is already appropriate. And okay, so my second, you can see how they use. My students are assessed through electronic portfolios, so they post everything. This is a writing piece of a student, and you can see that the student used the word. I asked them to bring my attention if they use the word because it's easy for me to let it go unnoticed. So you can see that the student, this is from this semester, this is from 3 weeks ago, and the student has used 2 words from the vocabulary bank in one writing. One thing that I am very emphatic when I talk about it with my students is that the use of the vocabulary bank words, it has to be very natural. It can't be, it can't feel fake. It can't feel like they're trying too hard. It has to feel very natural, the use of the word. And it does feel very natural in this writing. On the first one, the student wrote, "Dear Scared, I must admit that your problems are not exactly what people expect from teenagers. You are very odd." So it's very well placed. It sounds like something a native speaker would use naturally. And procrastinate as well. I taught that the other day. We were talking about procrastination over Twitter, and I said that's a good word for vocabulary bank. They loved it. Okay, let me move on a little bit so I can give you the third idea and we still have some questions. And I am a huge fan of feedback and using feedback to motivate students, to encourage students to work harder, right? Yes, not reassuring for scared. I agree with that. Okay, so one of the ways I use feedback to encourage writing, to promote writing in my classes is many times I give students content feedback rather than form feedback. What does that mean? I give them comments. I comment when the comments I write on their writing assignments are actually talking about what they talked. If so, on the media and advertising writing, for example, I can approach something like, oh yes, I really agree with your ideas. It's more like a conversation. I ask them questions. I asked them to develop, to elaborate more on a certain point that I thought it wasn't very clear. But I do not take a very academic approach on it. And then sometimes I will, if they're writing about a topic that I remember having read an article on or having seen something on the internet on, I'll give them the link to the article and say, hey, have you seen this? I think you might be interested in it. And many times the students come back to me and they actually bring it back written, yes, teacher, I have read it now, or they send me an email saying, I read that article. What do I mean? Okay, let me show you. Okay, so I know that this image is not exactly good, but this is a writing, and it's actually from the media and advertising chapter. Hi, Bruno. No, never too late, but almost. The writing was how powerful are advertising and media write about their influence in people's lives and decisions. Now, my student wrote the influence of, this is a 12 or 13-year-old student. The influence of advertising is very indirect. It doesn't change the way people think. It unanimously, no, yeah, unconsciously changes the image of a perfect product in one's head, thus making him consider buying a product from the announcing brand. Even if indirect, advertising might be very coercive. For example, kids who watch several ads of alcoholic beverages may consume them early if they're not given proper advice. So, by the way, coercive was one of the vocabulary banks of that year. So instead of just correcting, I did some corrections and I wrote, brilliantly put, Vitinho. I love what you said about it changing the product's image in our minds. But in a way, isn't that changing our minds nonetheless? And then he wrote back to me and, he came back to say, yeah, teacher, in a way, you're right. And they many times they answer the questions I write on the feedback in an email, because I tell them, if you feel like answering my questions, you can send me an email. And even if it's in a more informal way, they're still writing, they're still practicing writing, right? Okay, let me show you just one more. Still using feedback, another way that I use feedback to encourage writing is to make sure it is read and understood. I used to be very frustrated when I took the time to give feedback on the students' writing on how they could improve academically speaking. Your thesis statement is not good enough, or you should be more careful with verb tenses. You should develop your ideas. Your supporting ideas are not very clear. Well, I used to be very frustrated when I took the time to do that, and I gave the papers back to the students, and some of them didn't even look at the papers. They just put it away. Now that was, I was like, why did I waste my time? So I learned from my friend Tyson Seaburn, who is present in the room here at Seaburn. I learned from Tyson an idea, and which was the idea? I wrote all the feedback comments without putting any names, without mentioning any names, and I printed them in big pieces of paper separately. I got back to the classroom. I put all the feedback slips on the board, gave the writing pieces, the writing assignments corrected back to the students, asked them to read their writing assignments again and find their feedback. So they had to stand up, go to the board, read all the feedbacks, and I mean they had to read the feedbacks and read their own writings and see which feedback fit their writing. It actually made them think about that. Yes, that is a great idea, and the students really liked it, and that was Tyson's idea. They really, really liked it, Tatiana. They really, really liked it. Okay, guys, our time is up, but I will we'll have 5 or 10 minutes for questions. Do you guys have any questions, any doubts, anything that I didn't make very clear? Okay, I agree with you, Nico, that it involves creativity and it's difficult to force. I actually don't think you you can force it, but you can guide maybe. You can give the student tools to work with that creativity. Maybe you can start guiding a lot, and then you can little by little gradually take off your help. No, writing, well, writing sometimes has to be forced. Okay. Faisal, do you have a question? Okay, you've got the mic. You can talk.
Yeah. Hello?
Hello, Faisal.
You
Can
hear me?
everybody hear Faisal?
You hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, thanks a lot. Well, actually, this is great webinar about writing, because for myself and other teachers in Jordan, most parts of Jordan, especially in my region, well, they neglect this skill inside the classroom. Really, this is the truth. And I think that everyone cannot deny that writing is the toughest skill with others, and writing is productive. So we
Exactly.
need, we need our students to write whether words, sentences, or paragraphs or essays, and as you said, that it depends on their levels. Well, actually, what I believe that what we are going to enhance, do we enhance fluency or accuracy? So about how can we start our writing skill? I mean, how we can warm up our writing skill when we start? So we can do as a free. So we can do free activities. I think that at the beginning of the class, and this is just in a couple of minutes. I think this is what we call free writing.
Yeah.
And so sometimes just you can ask your students to listen to a piece of, you ask them just to take out a piece of paper and then ask them just to listen to a song, any song, and really don't worry about spelling, don't worry about grammar, writing for 2 minutes, everything that comes to your mind. I think that really they will capture the thoughts, their feelings, images, places, memories, everything that they come to their mind. Really, I like it. But by this one, I think that we are focusing on fluency, not accuracy. Because if you want to focus on accuracy, you have to teach them basics of writing, and this is not easy. Really, and you know that we start with words, and then a group of words will come up with sentences, and the group of sentences will come up with paragraphs. And you know that we have certain mechanics for teaching paragraphs and teaching essays, which are a group of related paragraphs, etc. And the other thing that I want to say that about authentic material, and this is very important, I believe in something that you can ask your students to write about comic strips, and this is very, very, very funny, really, and they will like it. You can ask them to write on, face walls, as you said. Um, the thing that I did with my students, that mapping, and mapping is very important. That you check, you prompt that just a concept, and you put it on the middle of the board, and then just you ask them. Just you can ask which things come from questioning that they ask, and then they get answers like what, when, how, why, where, and really you understand that your students understand the questioning words, what things that the one they ask. If they ask by using why, you know that they ask by for reasons, etc. And then you know that they generate by asking questioning. You know that they work in groups, not in individuals, and this is incorporating cooperative learning.
Yes,
And then
construction learning.
yeah, and then so through questioning they come up with answers. They come up with generating ideas about the concept that you are going to teach them. And the other thing that I want, so if I want to teach them or writing or in any topic, I have to get my students' interest. I want to get my students get involved with the topics that I want to teach them. So I cannot just tell them that write about globalization. They cannot write about globalization if they don't read about it, if they don't have background about globalization, and really it's very difficult to, teach students to write about concepts, abstract, things that I think that it will need a lot of time. Other thing that I want to say that for me, I can use symptoms, and symptoms. I don't know if anybody use that symptoms. If
Sitcoms,
you have an
yes.
idea about this, is a
Students love
really
sitcoms.
yeah, lovely. This is about comic comic situations. The thing that I did with my students, because that I'm not going to teach them writing, because I'm not teach them integrating skills, everything. So if I start with writing productive, so sometimes I end up with my class with follow up productive skill, that speaking, or sometimes I can ask them to listen, so I can end my class with receptive thing. Well, actually, for seconds, I try my students just to watch. They sit in backs to backs. Chairs. It depends on the number of students that you have, and some of them they watch the movie, and no sound, no audio. And the other thing that they describe everything that to their partners, that the ones that they don't see the movie. Really, and then they can watch this. That they can just describe. Some of them they speak, and some of them they write. They can ask them to write, and then sometimes you can ask them to turn the roles. The ones that who didn't see the movie, and the others, vice versa. And then after that, just you can ask them just listen, watch the movie with sounds, and then they want to compare the things that they describe without sounds, and things that this is lovely, really. I do it with my students, really. Another thing that I wanna focus about, creativity is very important, because that writing is not easy, really. It's a big burden to teach. Big, we teach it like this. But we need to teach it like a grammar, interactively, really, in cooperation. The things that I did, sometimes if I want to teach them how to write letters, and that we have letter, formal and informal, and then we have parts, we have introduction, and we have the body, and we have conclusion. So sometimes because students they believe in kinesthetic learning, so sometimes I give them the letter, whether formal or informal, with gap missing, missing words, and then I put the missing words on the walls, and then I ask them just to work in pairs or in groups, and then they stand up and search for the missing words. They will like it and adore it.
Okay.
I don't want to spend most of the time. I will leave the mic to other colleagues. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I think some people are trying to ask questions. But thanks for so many great ideas. Yes, using um, sitcoms and I mean some very, very great ideas there. Okay.
Yeah, comics, using comics, face walls.
Yeah, things that are better adjusted to their reality. Thanks a lot for sharing that, Faisal.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Sissy.
Okay, anybody else has a question? What's my best shot when it comes to motivation? You mean motivating students to write, Bruno? Yes, I got very reluctant students too. Well, the first the first thing I had was you have to, that was the main motivator behind the mini writings is you have to um, I think we could do a series of writing webinars. You have to not scare them off, especially if you're talking about young teenagers and young adults. You can't scare them off. If you come to them, you're going to write an essay, da da da. You have so many minutes. You scare them off. If you tell them you're going to be evaluated on this and this and this criteria, you scare them off. If you don't have a class that is already used to writing, take baby steps. Start with writing a paragraph, start with writing a comic strip, and then ask them to transform the comic strip story into a script for a play, and from there to a short story. You have to take very small steps so as to show them that there's nothing to be afraid and that it's no big deal. It's not the boogeyman. You can propose that to Shelley, Aniko, the series of webinars. Do I think correcting mistakes in writing keeps students motivated? Sometimes they don't like to see they have mistakes. That's one of the reasons why sometimes I give them feedback. Actually, the one I showed you, I did do some accuracy correction. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I will correct the writing piece in my mind and take notes about things that the student has to work on, but I only give feedback on content. I do realize that sometimes, especially if the students make a lot of mistakes, it may be very frustrating and demotivating for them. So I think the teacher should keep a balance at what to correct. Maybe you don't have to correct accuracy every single time. Yes, exactly. Positive feedback. And the teacher has to have the feeling for when the student can take a little bit more pressure, when the student needs a little bit more cheering up, you know. Dialogue journals are a nice suggestion, but not all the students, not all cultures are very used uh, to journals, I think. Let's see. Any other questions, you guys? I don't use red pen. I am traumatized by red pens. I use orange or green. So guys, thank you very much for coming, and um, I hope I was able to fill in for Shelly when she couldn't come. Um, you have there my name, my Twitter handle, my email, and the address to my blog. So if you want to be in touch, if you want to ask me anything further, I have other ideas and things like that. I would love to share more with you. Thank you so much for coming. It was great having all of you here, and I have the best PLN anyone can have in the world. Thank you, Isho. I miss you. Gracias, Ian. Thank you, Tatiana, for your kind words as well. Visu, bom panda, um cheiro. Yes. Okay, let me stop the recording here.